She took 4 arrows protecting the Alpha King's pup. What happened after left everyone in tears. The moon, pale and cold, barely pierced the thick canopy of trees, casting long, trembling shadows along the path. Deep in this twilight world, a lone figure moved with silent purpose. Alara's boots made no sound on the forest floor. Her eyes, sharp and unyielding, scanned every shadow, every movement. She was a protector, trained since childhood to guard those who could not protect themselves. And tonight, she was sworn to guard the most precious life in the kingdom, the Alpha King's pup. Kale, no older than a boy of 10, walked a few steps behind her, clutching the fur of his small, wolf-like companion. The pup's fur shimmered with a faint, silver glow, a mark of the bloodline that tied him to kings and ancient power. Alara had been told 100 times not to let the boy wander too far, but Kale's spirit was wild like the forests themselves. "Stay close, Kale," she said, her voice soft but firm. "Do not stray. Do not touch anything you do not understand." "I can protect myself," Kale said, trying to sound braver than he felt. His small hands clenched into fists, and he kept glancing around, as if daring the darkness to come closer. Alara allowed herself a small, almost imperceptible sigh. She admired his courage, but she had seen enough to know that courage alone would not save him tonight. They had been walking for hours, following the forest path that led to the sacred glade, where the king's advisors claimed the pup's first trial would take place. The glade was said to be protected by ancient magic, but Alara knew better. Magic could only protect so far. There were hunters, thieves, and creatures that lurked in the shadows, waiting for a mistake. It was then that the first arrow flew. It came out of nowhere, whistling through the air. Alara barely had time to react, dropping to the ground with a grace that came from years of training. Her eyes locked on the enemy, figures dressed in black, faces hidden beneath hoods, moving with terrifying coordination. Their target was the boy. "Alara," Kale shouted, fear piercing his voice. "They're going to—" She did not finish the sentence. Instead, she threw herself between him and the arrows. The first struck her shoulder. Pain exploded, sharp and unyielding, but she barely flinched. The second pierced her side. The third grazed her thigh, tearing through leather armor and flesh alike. Kale screamed, but the pup stepped forward, growling with a fierce determination that surprised even the boy. The enemy hesitated for a moment, and that moment was all Alara needed. She lunged at the nearest attacker, pushing Kale behind a tree. The fourth arrow struck her, this time lodging deep in her chest. Her knees buckled and the world blurred. Her vision narrowed to Kale's terrified face. He was safe, alive. That was all that mattered. Pain burned through her, but her training and willpower refused to let her fall completely. The enemies did not expect her to fight back, wounded as she was, but she was a storm disguised as a human. With a roar that carried the weight of 100 battles, she struck one of the attackers down, then another, staggering but relentless. Kale watched in horror, unable to move, unable to think. His small hands shook. The pup growled, pressing close to him as if sharing his fear. And then, suddenly, the attackers retreated, disappearing into the forest as if the shadows themselves had swallowed them. Alara sank to her knees, breathing heavily. Blood dripped from her wounds, staining the earth beneath her. Kale ran to her, dropping to his knees beside her. "You're hurt, you're hurt," he cried. "Why didn't you let me help you?" Alara tried to smile, though the effort made her wince. "I had to protect you," she whispered. "Always, always protect what is precious. That is the way of a guardian." Kale's hands were shaking as he pressed them against her wounds. "You're going to be okay." "You have to be, you can't, please don't." Alara's eyes softened. "Listen to me, Kale. There are forces, dark forces, that are already moving against you. You must be ready, always." She struggled to sit upright, her strength fading fast. Do not trust appearances. Even the closest friend can hide a shadow in their heart." Tears streaked Kale's face, mixing with the dirt and blood on his cheeks. "I don't want anyone to hurt you again. I don't want to lose you, he admitted, his voice trembling. Alara reached up, cupping his face weakly. You will not lose me, little one, not yet, but you must learn courage alone is not enough. You will need heart, mind, and strength, all three. Promise me, Kale. I promise, he whispered, though his voice was small against the vast, dark forest. The world around them was eerily quiet. The wind had died down. The moon peeked through the trees, casting a pale light over them. Alara's breathing was ragged, and her body ached in ways Kale could not understand. He pressed closer to her, trying to draw warmth from her failing strength. Stay with me, Alara, he pleaded. Please, I can't be without you. She smiled faintly, her hand resting on his shoulder. You are stronger than you know, she said. But strength alone will not save you, remember that. Her eyes began to close. The world blurred once more. Kale held her tightly, fear clawing at his chest. He had watched her fight, watched her bleed, and now he was powerless. He could not save her, not with the strength he had. Not yet. And then a faint shimmer in the air caught his eye. The pup, sensing something, stepped forward, its small body glowing softly in the moonlight. The silver fur seemed to pulse with a rhythm, as if calling to something ancient and unseen. Alara, what is that? Kale asked, his voice barely a whisper. Alara's eyes flickered open one last time. The bloodline, the magic, it will protect you if you are brave, she whispered. Her hand trembled as it brushed against the pup's fur. Do not forget, her voice faded. The wind picked up again, whispering through the trees, carrying with it the faint scent of smoke and distant danger. Kale's tears fell freely, mixing with the rain that had begun to drizzle, cold and relentless. He did not notice how long he had been holding her. He only knew that she was still, that her life hung by a thread. Fear twisted inside him, a raw, aching thing that made him want to cry, scream, and fight all at once. I will protect you, he whispered to the pup, who pressed close to him. I swear it. I will not let anything hurt you ever again. The forest seemed to answer him with silence. Shadows shifted between the trees, and somewhere in the distance, an owl hooted, a lonely, mournful sound that echoed across the night. Kale's small fingers brushed against Alara's hand again. There was no warmth left, only cold and faint pulses of life. He held onto it as if by sheer will alone he could keep her alive. And for a moment the boy believed he might. Then, from the depths of the forest, a rustling sounded. Not the rustling of wind or leaves, but the careful, deliberate steps of someone or something approaching. Kale froze, holding his breath. The pup growled, hackles raised, ears pinned back. The shadow moved closer, and Kale caught a glimpse of a figure, tall and cloaked, face hidden in darkness. A voice, soft but commanding, echoed through the glade. You dare enter the forest of shadows, little prince. And with her, Kale's heart pounded. He did not understand the voice, but he felt its weight pressing down on him. The figure stopped a few steps away, leaving a circle of shadow around him. He looked down at Alara, whose chest rose and fell faintly. She was alive, just barely, but the danger was far from over. Kale's fear turned to determination. I will not let you harm her, he said, voice shaking but firm. I swear it. The figure chuckled, a low, chilling sound. We shall see, child, we shall see. Kale gripped the pup tightly, knowing that whatever came next he could not run. He could not hide, he had made a promise, and promises in the forest of shadows were not to be broken. The wind howled again. The night seemed darker, the shadows thicker. And Kale, small but unyielding, prepared himself for whatever came next, knowing deep in his heart that nothing would ever be the same. The forest was silent after the rustling of the cloaked figure faded into the shadows. Kale's chest heaved, his small hands clutching the pup tightly. The drizzle of rain had turned into a steady fall, cold and relentless, soaking the boy to his bones. Yet he did not move from where he knelt beside Alara. Her breathing was shallow, her pale face glistening with rain and blood. I have to save her, Kale whispered, his voice trembling but determined. He pressed his hand over the deepest wound on her chest, willing the life in her to return. The pup growled softly, nudging him as if agreeing with his resolve. But Kale was only 10. Even with courage burning in his chest, he was a child faced with forces beyond his understanding. And yet he would not give up. He could not when her life depended on him. Hours passed, or perhaps only moments, but time seemed to have stopped in the rain-drenched forest. Kale tried everything he could remember from the stories of healers and guardians. He cleaned her wounds with water, pressed her hands, whispered words he barely understood but hoped carried power. "Hold on, Alara, please hold on," he pleaded, tears falling freely. The forest, alive with ancient magic, seemed to answer him. A faint shimmer appeared around the pup, illuminating the clearing in soft silver light. Kale noticed it immediately, staring in awe as the glow from the pup's fur grew stronger, casting a protective circle around them. Then, slowly, Alara's hand twitched. Kale gasped, leaning closer, afraid that his hopes were false. "Alara," he breathed, "you're alive." Her eyelids fluttered open, revealing eyes dimmed with pain but still sharp with focus. She tried to speak, but her voice came out weak, a mere whisper. "Kale, the curse, the bloodline, beware." Her voice faded again, but her hand reached for him. Kale held it tightly, promising silently that he would keep her safe. They had survived the first attack, but the shadow of danger remained. Kale knew the cloaked figure had not been alone. Someone, or something, was watching them, waiting for the right moment to strike. He could feel it. The hairs on his arms stood on end as a cold wind swept through the trees. I will not let anyone harm you ever," Kale said again, though the words felt heavier in the rainy darkness. "I promise, you don't have to worry anymore." Alara tried to smile, but the effort caused her to wince. Her breaths were shallow and pain still coursed through her body. "Courage is not enough, Kale. You must learn strength, heart, and mind, all three," she murmured, her words fading as she struggled to stay conscious. Kale pressed his forehead against hers, feeling the warmth of her skin despite the chill of the rain. "I will learn, Alara. I will be strong for you. Just don't leave me." The pup nuzzled Kale's shoulder, its glow dimming slightly but still steady. The forest seemed to lean closer, shadows moving like whispers, watching, waiting. Then, from the edge of the clearing, a rustling sound returned, soft, cautious, deliberate. Kale froze. "Someone's there," he whispered. The pup growled, hackles raised, as the figure stepped into the dim silver light. It was not the same figure as before. This one was smaller, with a hood thrown back to reveal a young woman. Her eyes were dark, deep with knowledge beyond her years, and her presence radiated both power and calm. "You are brave, child," she said softly, her voice carrying through the rain. "And you are guarding more than you realize." Kale looked at her with wide eyes. "Who are you? Are you here to help?" The woman knelt beside Alara, examining her wounds. "I am Leora, and yes, I can help. But you must trust me completely." She produced a small satchel from her cloak, filled with herbs, glowing stones, and something that pulsed faintly with light. Kale nodded, unsure but desperate. "Please save her." Leora worked quickly, her hands moving with precision. She sprinkled powders, pressed soft cloths soaked in glowing liquid to Alara's wounds, and whispered words in a language Kale could not understand. The rain seemed to slow, as if the forest itself was holding its breath. Slowly, Alara's breathing deepened. Color returned to her cheeks and her eyes opened fully, meeting Kale's. Relief washed over him so fiercely that he felt weak. "You saved me," Alara whispered, her voice still weak. Leora smiled faintly. "I merely guided her." "The true strength comes from the bond you share and the courage you have shown, Kale." Kale blushed, looking down at the pup. We did it together," he said quietly. Alara reached out, touching Kale's cheek gently. "Yes, together," she agreed. "But danger still walks this forest, and it will not stop until it has what it seeks." Kale shivered. What do you mean?" Leora looked toward the forest, her eyes narrowing. There is a shadow tied to the bloodline of the Alpha King, one who hungers for power and for revenge. That shadow will not stop, and it knows that the pup is the key. Alara's eyes widened with concern. We must return before it is too late. The forest cannot protect him forever. Kale nodded, determination hardening in his chest. I won't let it hurt him or you, he said firmly. We'll face it together. They began the slow trek back toward the castle, the rain lessening into a mist. Every step was careful, every sound in the forest weighed with potential danger. Kale stayed close to Alara, holding her hand when her strength faltered. The pup trotted at their side, glowing softly, as if leading them with its light. By the time they reached the edge of the forest, the first hints of dawn painted the horizon in gray and silver. The castle stood in the distance, tall and silent, its towers hidden by mist. The walls promised safety, but Kale knew that inside, forces were at play that were just as dangerous as the forest. Alara leaned on Kale for support, her steps slow but steady. You have grown stronger tonight, she said softly. More than you know, Kale blushed. I just did what I had to. No, Alara corrected gently. You showed courage, yes, but more importantly, you showed heart. That is the rarest strength of all. As they neared the castle gates, they were met by a figure in heavy armor, the Alpha King himself. His eyes, cold and commanding, fell on Kale first, then Alara. Kale, he said, his voice low and measured. What happened in the forest? Kale swallowed hard. There was an attack. Alara protected me. She was hurt. The king's eyes narrowed as he looked at Alara, then down at the blood on her clothes. For a long moment he said nothing, his face unreadable. Guardian, he finally said, his voice sharp. Step forward. Alara obeyed, standing tall despite the pain. Your Majesty, she said, bowing her head slightly. The Alpha King's gaze softened ever so slightly as he examined her. You risked your life for the pup. That was wise and yet foolish. The forest is not safe. Neither are we. Alara met his gaze evenly. I did what I swore to do. I protect the pup at all costs. The king studied her for a long moment, then looked at Kale. And you, child, you must understand the danger that comes with your bloodline. Courage is not enough to survive what is coming. You will need wisdom, patience, and the strength to face shadows you cannot yet imagine. Kale nodded solemnly. I understand, Father. I will learn. The king's eyes softened further, a rare warmth crossing his stern features. Good, that is all I ask for now. But remember, even those with the greatest courage can be deceived by shadows. As they passed through the castle gates, Kale felt a mixture of relief and unease. The danger had passed for the night, but the shadow of what was coming remained. Somewhere unseen, forces were moving, and they would not rest until they had the boy and the power that flowed in his veins. Later, as Kale watched Alara resting in the small chamber assigned to her, he felt a strange mix of emotions: fear, gratitude, admiration, and something more, something he did not yet fully understand, a bond that had been forged in blood and shadow, stronger than any magic or sword. Alara stirred, opening her eyes briefly. Kale, you must not forget the bond we share tonight. It will guide you, protect you, and maybe even save you. Kale nodded, unsure what to say. Words felt small against the weight of the promise he had made. But he would not forget. He could never forget. The night passed slowly. The castle was silent, the shadows long and watchful. And somewhere in the darkness beyond the walls, eyes followed their every move, waiting for the right moment to strike. Kale knew that the next trials were coming, trials not just of courage, but of heart, mind, and soul. And he was ready to face them, ready to protect the one who had risked everything for him, no matter the cost. The forest outside the castle was a different place than the one Kale had seen before. It was darker, heavier, as if the trees themselves carried secrets and memories from centuries past. Mist curled around the roots and trunks, hiding the path, while shadows stretched unnaturally, moving with whispers of wind and magic. Kale had been sent with Alara to the shadowed woods, a place no ordinary human could navigate without guidance. The Alpha King had ordered this journey, not as punishment but as a test. For Kale to grow strong, he had to learn to face fear, darkness, and his own doubts. And for Alara, it was a trial of her trust, patience, and resolve. "You must stay close," Alara warned, her hand gripping Kale's. "This forest, it senses fear. It feeds on it. One misstep and it can swallow us whole." Kale swallowed hard, glancing at the twisted trees, their blackened branches like skeletal fingers reaching for them. "I'm not afraid," he said, though his voice trembled slightly. I just want to protect you." Alara's eyes softened. "You already do, Kale. But you will also need to protect yourself. And the pup, always the pup." The little wolf-like creature padded beside them, its silver fur faintly glowing. It moved cautiously, sniffing the air as if reading invisible threads of magic. Kale felt comfort in its presence, a reminder that even in darkness, light existed. Hours passed as they followed a narrow path that wound deeper into the forest. The trees grew taller, their branches intertwining so tightly that sunlight could not pierce through. Strange sounds echoed, whispers, rustles, the distant snap of a branch. Kale's hand never left Alara's, and her presence gave him courage, though every step felt like walking through a dream where danger could emerge at any moment. Suddenly, the ground beneath them shifted. Kale stumbled, nearly falling into a pit shrouded in mist. Alara's hand shot out, steadying him instantly. "Watch the ground," she warned, her eyes scanning the mist. "The forest moves, it tests you. If you falter, it will know." Kale took a careful step back, then another, following her lead. "Tests like in stories?" he asked, trying to sound brave. "Yes," Alara said, her voice quiet but firm. "But these stories have consequences. A single mistake can cost more than a life. It can break you." Kale swallowed hard, gripping her hand tighter. "I won't break." A low hum began in the distance, like a song made of wind and shadow. The mist thickened, curling around their legs and rising toward their knees, hiding the path ahead. Kale noticed shapes moving in the fog, figures fleeting and indistinct that seemed almost human but not quite. "Alara, what are those?" he whispered. She looked at him gravely. "Shadows of doubt and fear. The forest makes them real. You must face them or they will consume you." Before Kale could respond, a figure stepped from the mist. It was a mirror image of him, small, trembling, fearful. The reflection stared at him with wide, accusing eyes, shaking its head. Kale stumbled back, fear clutching at his chest. "You see," Alara said softly. "The forest shows what you fear most. Do not let it control you." Kale took a deep breath, closing his eyes for a moment. He imagined the pup beside him, glowing softly, and Alara's hand in his. Slowly, he opened his eyes and faced the shadow. "I'm not afraid of you," he said firmly. "I will protect them. I will protect Alara. I will not fail." The shadow quivered, then dissolved into the mist with a whispering sigh, leaving Kale shaking but resolute. Alara gave him a small nod of approval. "Good," she said. "One trial down, but there are more ahead." As they moved forward, the forest grew quieter, almost suffocatingly still. Then a sudden rustle erupted behind them. Kale spun around, the pup growling, but there was nothing, just shadows dancing in the mist. "Alara, is it?" Kale began. "Yes," she interrupted softly. "The forest can summon fear as if it were real. You will have to trust your heart more than your eyes." They continued walking, the path winding down to a small clearing surrounded by ancient stones etched with runes. The mist seemed thicker here, curling around the stones, glowing faintly with a pale blue light. "This is the trial of courage," Alara explained. "To pass, you must face a memory that haunts you, something you regret, something that terrifies you, and accept it. Only then can you move forward." Kale's heart pounded. Memories crowded his mind, the ambush in the forest, the terror of seeing Alara wounded, his own helplessness. His fists clenched. I don't know if I can," he admitted, voice trembling. Alara knelt beside him, placing a hand on his shoulder. "You can, and you will. Remember, courage is not the absence of fear. It is facing fear, even when it shakes you to your core. Taking a deep breath, Kale stepped into the center of the clearing. The mist swirled around him, and suddenly he was no longer in the forest. He stood alone in darkness, hearing whispers calling his name. Shadows of his past mistakes appeared. His failure to save a small bird from a trap, his fear during the ambush that had wounded Alara, the moments he felt powerless. Kale's knees shook, but he clenched his fists. I did what I could, he whispered. I will protect those I love. I will not run from fear. The shadows recoiled, fading slowly. The whispers quieted. A gentle warmth began to spread from the pup, still at the edge of the clearing, glowing brighter. Kale felt strength returning to him, a steady confidence he had not known before. You have passed the trial of courage, Alara said, stepping forward. But remember, courage alone will not be enough. Your heart and mind must follow. Before Kale could respond, the mist shifted violently. Figures appeared at the edge of the clearing, dark silhouettes, taller than any human, moving with deliberate predatory grace. They advanced silently, eyes glowing faintly red. Kale's stomach twisted with fear. Who are they? He asked. Alara, he added quickly, his voice firmer now, we can face them together. I will protect you. Alara's eyes met his, and for the first time, Kale felt the weight of their bond, not just as protector and ward, but as companions who shared a connection stronger than fear or danger. We face them together, she said, her voice steady. The shadows circled them, moving closer, their forms flickering between solid and mist. Kale felt a chill run down his spine, but he held his ground. The pup growled, and its silver glow intensified, casting light that pushed back the darkness. Kale took a step forward. Leave us, we will not be afraid. The shadows hesitated, their red eyes flickering uncertainly. Alara whispered an incantation, her voice soft but commanding, and the runes on the stones glowed. A wave of energy radiated outward, creating a protective barrier around them. The shadows hissed and recoiled. Kale's chest heaved, but he felt exhilaration mixed with fear. He had faced his inner darkness, fought physical danger, and stood firm. And in that moment he realized something powerful. Strength was not just about fighting enemies. It was about trust, courage, and heart. The shadows finally dissipated, retreating into the mist. The clearing grew quiet once more, and the mist slowly lifted. Kale looked at Alara, breathless but alive, and she nodded at him with pride. You are learning, Kale, she said softly. The bond between us, it grows stronger with every challenge, and that bond will be the key to surviving what comes next. Kale smiled faintly, feeling a warmth in his chest he had never felt before. Then we face the next trial together, he said. The pup barked softly, trotting ahead, and the three of them began to move forward again. The forest, though still shadowed and mysterious, seemed less threatening now. Kale knew that more trials awaited, tests of heart, mind, and courage. But he also knew that he was no longer the boy who had trembled at the ambush. He was growing, learning, and forming a bond that could withstand even the darkest of shadows. As they disappeared deeper into the woods, mist swirling around them like a living cloak, Kale could not shake the feeling that eyes were watching from afar, waiting for the moment when their courage would be truly tested, and when the shadow that haunted their bloodline would strike again. The sky above the kingdom was dark and swollen with clouds, as if the heavens themselves were preparing for something extraordinary. A cold wind swept through the castle towers, carrying whispers of the past and omens of the future. The people of the kingdom had gathered inside the grand hall, unaware of the storm that was building, not of rain, but of shadows and destiny. Kale stood at the edge of the castle courtyard, the pup at his side, its silver glow brighter than ever. Alara walked beside him, her steps careful but determined. Though she had healed from the wounds of the forest, her body still carried faint scars, and her spirit bore the weight of every trial they had faced together. The time has come, Alara said softly, her eyes scanning the horizon. The eclipse begins tonight. The shadow tied to the bloodline will reveal itself. We must be ready. Kale nodded, determination hardening his young features. He had grown stronger since the forest trials. He had learned courage, heart, and patience, and the bond with Alara had become his greatest strength. But even so, a deep unease settled in his chest. The shadow they had felt watching them was not yet defeated. The Alpha King appeared beside them, his expression grave but composed. Kale, Alara, the trials were meant to prepare you. But the eclipse, it will bring the shadow here and it will test everything you have learned. Are you ready? Kale's hands clenched and he met his father's eyes. I am ready, father. I will protect the pup Alara and this kingdom. The king nodded. Good, then we begin. The sky darkened further as the moon moved across the sun, casting an eerie twilight over the kingdom. Shadows stretched unnaturally across the walls and streets, and the air hummed with tension. Somewhere in the distance, the cloaked figure of the shadow watched, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Kale took a deep breath, gripping Alara's hand. We face it together, he said. Yes, Alara agreed. Together. Suddenly the air grew colder and the ground beneath them trembled. From the mist beyond the castle gates, figures emerged, tall, dark, and imposing, their forms shifting like smoke. The shadow had arrived. Its presence was suffocating, a force that seemed to drain light and courage from the heart. You are brave to come this far, child of the Alpha, a voice echoed, deep and hollow, carrying a power that made the air itself shiver. But courage alone cannot save you, not from me. Kale stepped forward, placing himself between the shadow and Alara. We are not afraid of you, he said firmly. We have faced fear before and we will face it again. You will not harm anyone here. The shadow laughed, a sound that twisted like a knife through the air. We shall see, little prince. With a sudden movement, the shadow surged forward, its form blurring, stretching toward them like smoke taking shape. Kale felt a wave of fear, cold and sharp, pressing against his chest. But then he felt Alara's hand on his shoulder, steady and reassuring. Focus on your bond, she whispered. Let it guide you. Trust in what we share. Kale closed his eyes for a moment, imagining the pup glowing brightly, Alara beside him, the lessons of courage and trust he had learned in the forest. When he opened them, he felt strength flowing through him, an energy born of connection, not just magic or skill. Together, he said again, lifting his head. The shadow lunged and the pup leaped forward, its silver glow intensifying, forming a shield of light around them. Kale and Alara stood side by side, feeling the warmth and strength of their shared courage. The shadow struck again and again, but the bond between protector, prince, and pup held firm, repelling the darkness with every attack. Alara's voice rang out, calm and commanding, as she whispered incantations learned from the forest trials. The runes etched on the castle stones glowed in response, spreading light that pushed the shadow backward. Kale raised his hands, channeling his determination into the pup, whose glow now formed a protective barrier around them all. You are strong, the shadow hissed, its voice now laced with frustration. But you cannot defeat me with courage alone. Your hearts are not yet ready. Kale's chest heaved, but he did not falter. Our hearts are ready, he said, his voice steady, because we are not alone. We have each other. Alara's eyes softened, and she placed her hand over his. That is the truth the shadow does not understand. Love, trust, and loyalty, these are stronger than any darkness. For a moment, the shadow hesitated, uncertainty flickering in its form. Kale saw the weakness and pressed forward, stepping fully into the light of the pup's glow. The shadow shrieked, its form beginning to dissolve like mist under the morning sun. Now, Alara shouted. Together, she and Kale focused all their energy on the bond they shared. The courage of Kale, the wisdom and strength of Alara, and the mystical light of the pup. A wave of pure energy shot outward, striking the shadow. With a final, anguished cry, it dissolved completely, leaving only whispers in the wind and a lingering sense of peace. Kale dropped to his knees, exhausted but alive. Alara knelt beside him, placing her hand gently on his shoulder. "You did it," she whispered, tears in her eyes. "You faced the shadow and stood strong. You are ready." The pup nuzzled Kale's cheek, glowing faintly as if acknowledging the victory. Kale smiled, feeling a warmth in his chest that went beyond relief. It was the pride of knowing he had grown, of knowing he had protected those he loved, and of knowing that the bond he shared with Alara could withstand even the darkest forces. The Alpha King emerged from the castle gates, his expression softer than Kale had ever seen. He knelt beside them, placing a hand on Kale's shoulder. "You have done well, my son," he said. "You have proven that strength is not measured by sword or shield alone, but by heart, mind, and spirit. You honor our bloodline." Kale looked up at his father, feeling a surge of emotion. "Thank you, father. I could not have done it without Alara and the pup." The king nodded. "And that is the greatest lesson of all. Power alone is nothing without trust, loyalty, and love." Alara smiled, placing her hand over Kale's. "You have grown into more than a prince tonight," she said softly. "You have become a true guardian of the bloodline." As the first rays of sunlight broke through the clouds, illuminating the castle and courtyard, Kale felt a sense of peace settle over him. The shadow was gone, the eclipse passed, and the trials had forged a bond that nothing could break. But even in the brightness, Kale knew the lessons of the forest would remain. Courage, heart, and trust, they were not just tools for victory, they were the foundation of who he would become. And with Alara by his side and the pup as a guide, he felt ready to face whatever challenges the future held. Later, as Kale stood on the balcony overlooking the kingdom, Alara beside him, he felt a new understanding of his place in the world. He was no longer the boy who had trembled at the ambush in the forest. He was a protector, a prince, and someone who had learned the true power of bonds forged in hardship. "Alara," he said softly, "thank you for trusting me, for staying by my side, and for helping me become strong." Alara placed a hand on his shoulder, smiling warmly. "Kale, it was never just about strength. It was about who you are, and that is someone remarkable." The pup barked softly, trotting up to them, its silver glow now gentle, serene. It nudged Kale's hand, reminding him that even in victory, care and vigilance were needed. The Alpha King joined them on the balcony, placing a firm hand on Kale's shoulder. "This is only the beginning, my son. Shadows may return, challenges may rise, but tonight you have proven that the heart and the bond it forms are stronger than any darkness. Remember that always." Kale nodded, looking at Alara, the pup, and the kingdom spread below. He felt a surge of hope, courage, and purpose. Whatever trials awaited, he knew they would face them together, and that knowledge gave him a strength deeper than any sword or spell. As the wind carried whispers of the past and promise of the future, Kale took a deep breath. The kingdom was safe for now. The shadow had been defeated, and he had learned that true power was not in fear, darkness, or even skill, but in heart, courage, and the bonds forged through trust, sacrifice, and love. Alara stood beside him, her eyes reflecting the first golden light of dawn. Kale felt a warmth in his chest, a quiet understanding that some bonds were unbreakable, some lessons eternal, and some victories, those won with heart and courage, would echo forever. The kingdom below stirred to life as the sun rose, but Kale's gaze remained on the horizon. He knew the future would hold challenges, shadows, and tests of every kind. Yet for the first time, he felt truly ready. Together they had faced darkness, survived trials, and emerged stronger. Together, they would protect the bloodline, the kingdom, and each other. And together, they would carry the light of hope into whatever shadows lay ahead. The wind carried a final whisper through the castle towers, a quiet, gentle sound almost like a blessing. Kale smiled faintly, feeling the weight of his journey and the promise of what was yet to come. For now, the shadows were gone, and for now there was only light.